Where there is love, there is life. Love is the one unifying value among all cultures, nationalities, genders, races, and communities. Love is the one uniting experience among all beings. Everyone needs connection. Every being needs love. In our society, we tend to think of relationships as an entirely human phenomenon. If animals are included in our conception of relationships, it is typically limited to companion animals, dogs and cats. We are conditioned to believe that other beings, such as farmed animals, are not individuals, and thus incapable of complex emotions, incapable of love. But is this perception reality? Have we been led astray? All animals are capable of great love, play, grief, and suffering. Farmed animals may even surpass our companion animals in this capacity. Ducks bond with their chosen partner, mate for life, and remain forevermore physically inseparable. Roosters insist that their flock of hens eat before themselves and will fight to the bitter end to protect their hens from harm. Turkeys communicate with their young before they're even hatched and have over 50 different vocalizations, each with a unique meaning. Goats feel frustration and grief when separated from their group. Sheep can recognize up to 50 different faces of various species. They can even distinguish between calm, startled, and fearful expressions. Pigs are as intelligent as 3 to 5-year-old humans, and mother pigs sing to their babies as they are nursing. Cows yearn for earnest emotional bonds and forge deep preferential friendships with others, even if they are not genetically related. Every being craves connection. Have you ever been deprived of that critical connection to another being? Have you ever felt that hollow ache in your chest? An ache that consumes your entire self when even your body cannot escape profound solitude? For most of us, that is the worst feeling we could experience. The sense of inner and outer desolation is devastating to our psyche. It is devastating to the psyche of all beings. We would now like to share with you the story of an individual who was thrust into the deepest abyss of solitude and certain death, but through his unrelenting pursuit of connection, saved his own life. This is Lucky's story.
So Lucky's story began on an Arizona ranch 2 years ago when he was pulled from his mother's womb after she was killed by wolves. And just an amazing story that really marked his luck for the rest of his life. And so that's when he began being lucky. The kids from this ranching family apparently wanted Lucky as a pet. They bottle fed him and took care of him, and they even brought him inside. And for a while, when Lucky was really little, he lived inside with the kids. And they were going to raise him to eventually eat him. And so his name went from Lucky to Unlucky. this ranching family had sold the properties, or they didn't have a proper place for Lucky to be, and so that's when he showed up in Lyons, old South St. Vrain Road, and many people walk up and down this road. And so that's when Yolanda came running one day, telling me that I wouldn't believe, what she saw. And
that I was kind of like a bull whisperer, right? Because I had this bull obey me, and I was talking to him in Spanish, like, ven, ven, ven.
She thought she was special.
I felt very special.
That Lucky was a social butterfly, and that he's already captivated people who walk up and down that road.
And I met Lucky on a beautiful morning on June 19th, 2021. I was going for a walk on Old St. Vrain Road. It is a very beautiful place between the canyon and the river. Normally there used to be an empty lot towards the mountain. And when I was going walking, I saw a beautiful creature, a beautiful beast that was on the other side of the fence. Lucky.
This guy.
I saw him on the other side of the fence. I kept walking, and suddenly he turned around and he made eye contact with me. It was like, woo, super powerful. It was striking. That day changed my life forever. He started like walking towards me, and I was like surprised. So I kept walking, and he continued like watching me and displaying this beautiful charm that totally attracted me. I started like talking to him in Spanish, and he accompanied me all the way to the end of the property. Then I continued walking, and he was like mooing with his beautiful, handsome face over the fence. When I came back, he was waiting for me, and I felt so special. I felt like I had a magic, power, towards this bull. So I continued talking to him in Spanish, and I called him Torito, ven Torito, Torito, ven Torito, come little bull. And he came walking next to me by my side to the gate. By the gate, I started like petting him, and I was like, it was surreal, because in my head, I had this idea that farm animals behave in a certain way. They are kind of like lonely animals that eat all day long, and that's, everything that they do, they don't have any interactions with humans. So it was when I went home that I told Jorge about my experience with this torito, that made me feel like going back there and see if he continued behaving like that. And it happened again and again and again and again, because we kept going every single day to visit him. He was kind of like calling for this human affection and attention. And we couldn't spend one day without visiting him, because we knew that he needed us to be there. Or maybe we needed him to be there as well.
First we were petting him with a stick, and then eventually we were petting with our hands, and we were hugging him, and every single day. We even got a routine going. And so our routine was we'd show up, and as soon as Yolanda would call Torito, Torito.
Torito. He was like
would
looking towards me and walking towards me.
And then we'd run some laps. We'd run a few laps, and he'd start bucking and run this way and that way, and run a few laps following us running, and follow Yolanda running, really.
We even kind of like taught him how to jump and back. I started like jumping next to him and saying, salta, salta, salta. And he started like jumping and backing and dodging, next to us.
So after running a few laps, he'd settle in this massage position, and Yolanda she would leave this little stick on the ground just to massage him, and we would spend easily sometime an hour, 2 hours there until it got dark.
And then I brought my shoe brush, and he was just with his eyes closed, waiting for this nice, gentle brush every afternoon night. He gave me such a peace in me, during these times of COVID, working with my students, seeing them with masks all day long. Every time that I was bringing a video from lions running, along the way with him, from the other side of the fence, that brought a lot of happiness to the kids. They were kind of like
just to the kids, right?
I
call it the lucky effect. So we'd go and visit him, and sometimes it was after a long day at work. We had a certain energy about us, and then we'd go visit Lucky, and everything would just change, and we just relax and listen.
Was
to his
talking
breathing.
about being present.
Yeah.
That was probably the time of my day where I truly feel connected with myself, and we had this kind of like routine. Every single afternoon night, we both walked, biked, or drove to see him, depending on the time.
If it was getting dark, we'd jump in the car and drive over to see them.
And we used to cut some fresh grass from the canyon to feed him as a treat. And we used to run every single afternoon. And after the run, we went to the gate. We were kind of like petting him. We went back to the beginning of, the property, and then it was his special time to be brushed. So one day in September, after a big hailstorm, we were worried because we saw that Lucky didn't have any shelter. And I asked Ron, the owner of the property, what was going to happen with Lucky over winter because he didn't have a shelter. And he said, well, Yolanda, the owner are meat eaters, and they will eat him. And that was like shocking, because I totally believe inside me that he was going to stay there as a rescued animal, because for the first time, after months of being with him and establishing a relationship, I found out that he was going to die. And he was going to die soon, like in a couple of weeks, maybe a month. At that time, I needed to protect myself from the pain of losing him, and I decided to build some filters. I was kind of like trying to convince myself that Lucky was a farm animal, and that was his destiny to be the food for a family over winter. That's, what I believed my whole life, that farm animals were raised to feed people. It was around October when Jorge was on a bike ride that I started playing a Spanish song about a bull that is very popular in Spain. And suddenly, listen.
El toro y la luna.
El toro y la luna. It is about a bull that falls in love with the moon. Every night he leaves, the herd to go to the river and see the moon on the water of the river. And suddenly, I felt something inside me that finally was able to come out. And it was this pain. I was releasing everything that I was keeping inside me, that it didn't feel good. And I started like crying and crying and crying because Lucky was going to lose his life. And it was at that time that I totally understood that I needed to do something about it. Jorge came back from a bike ride and saw me crying and crying. And we played that song again and we cried together.
I didn't cry.
You did, you did. And then we went to see him, and it was during that walk that we encountered a lot of people from the community that were even petting Lucky at that time, that started asking us, are you going to do something about it? Are you going to save him? And then we understood that we had to do something about it.
That was the decisive moment, for sure.
And we started to make a plan. The first step was finding a proper place for him to live, because we couldn't keep him in our backyard as my family suggested. It was through Cars and Paula that we found out about Loving Arms. We didn't know about this piece of paradise before we, met them through Lucky.
We had no idea a place like this even existed, and amazingly it does, thankfully it does.
So we made contact and they responded saying that they were going to work to make a place for him. That day, everything changed, like a big energy invited us. It was like the first part of the plan, probably the most difficult part was in place. The first kind of like piece of the puzzle was there for us. And we started like crying of happiness.
A place like this had to exist for us to even consider it. And so luckily, Loving Arms was willing to take Lucky in, and then the next step was
contacting the owner, because at that point he was part of his meal for winter to feed his family. And the whole community got involved to save Lucky. And we as a teachers were able to share this beautiful story with our students. Our students were following every single day what was going on in our lives and Lucky's life. So when we found out that he was going to have a place, in this piece of paradise, we felt such a relief.
He knew something was going on. His body language, his energy.
I remember the day that we told him that he was going to move to Loving Arms.
I've never seen him so happy.
He totally understood that he was going to be in the most beautiful place on earth. He started like jumping and running non-stop to the point that was like not very normal, that behavior. Yes, he used to run with me, but we were in the car when I saw him by himself at the property, going nuts around, the property on the other side of the fence. And I told Jorge, stop the car, look at Lucky. We went close to him and he continued displaying this beautiful, happy behavior in front of us. That was the day where we realized that we had done something very important for a beautiful soul that he is.
We were so happy, don't get me wrong, but it was bittersweet. He wasn't going to be part of our daily lives anymore. The last couple nights, I decided to spend a night right there next to Lucky, between the river and the canyon wall, and I could see the moon, and I could hear his breathing, and I just remember that song, El Toro y la Luna, the bull and the moon. I remember vividly those 2 nights just listening to his breathing, and that was just the most calming, soothing way to go to bed. It was just an amazing moment.
And I remember the day that we finally kind of like put an end to this situation, and Lucky was saved, and Loving Arms staff and the community came to take him to his forever home, and that was like, you know, the most beautiful day in our lives.
Once Lucky found his home at Luvin Arms, he was quarantined to ensure he was not carrying any communicable diseases, and so that we could evaluate his emotional health. The Luvin Arms staff and human community gave him all the attention he desperately craved. Lucky's intense need for emotional and physical connection completely captivated everyone. Lucky's spirit magnetically bonded people and communities together and became an everlasting part of our hearts. When we determined that Lucky was carrying no harmful diseases, and that he was emotionally stable enough to socially integrate with other cows, we introduced him to our band of big boys. Tito, our sweet cow ambassador, lost his best friend Leroy earlier this year. Tito sincerely mourned the loss of his friend. His grief was palpable. Tito cried for days, and perhaps the most heartbreaking was how everyone kept vigil. Tito, Domino, and Milo refused to leave the barn for nearly 2 months, hoping to see their cherished friend once more. We all hoped that Lucky would assuage that hollow ache in Tito's heart, that Lucky would provide the friendship for which Tito had been yearning. We never imagined how true that would prove to be. We decided to introduce Lucky to the big boys in a holding area adjacent to the rest of the cows, so that they could get to know each other while still in their respective safe spaces. Because it is important that individuals are able to socially assimilate into the larger group, we plan to keep Lucky in the adjacent area for at least a week before fully integrating him with the big boys. Well, Tito would have none of that. As soon as he saw Lucky, Tito quite literally jumped the fence in order to get to him. Tito immediately recognized a young kindred spirit and could not contain his excitement. He had to be close to Lucky. In his elation, Tito actually broke the fence, and our facilities manager, Rob, repaired it with a special piece of wood to commemorate the moment that Tito and Lucky's friendship began. At Tito's insistence, Lucky was accepted into the social group at once and has since forged unique friendships with each of his companions. As his bonds with his cow brothers have grown deeper, Lucky has also kindled a budding romance with one of our cowgirls, Samantha. Lucky and Samantha stare into one another's eyes over the fence for hours. Their love for one another is a testament to the profound capacity for relationships of farmed animals. With his social and emotional needs finally met, Lucky is now, however, facing different challenges. Due to a previous diet of grain and molasses designed to fatten him for slaughter, Lucky has severe digestion issues. And his digestive system is extremely fragile. His stomach is bloated, he is experiencing intense stomach pains, and he cannot absorb nutrients properly. Most cows in animal agriculture industry are fed this diet because it forces them to gain copious weight in a very short amount of time. This enables the producers to slaughter them early, therefore producing more profit. The natural lifespan of a cow is 20 to 25 years. But on this diet, Lucky and the millions of cows raised for meat every year are slaughtered around 2 years of age. A diet of grain completely disrupts the gut microbiome of cows, creating the conditions for harmful bacteria such as Salmonella and Campylobacter to propagate in their gut. These lethal bacteria pose an immediate threat to the individual's health and are endemic to the wider animal agriculture industry, causing harm to human food system through dangerous contamination of meat and other animal products. The guiding principle of Luvin Arms is ahimsa, nonviolence toward all living beings. We not only rescue individuals from abuse and neglect, but we commit to giving them a fulfilling and enriching life beyond rescue. When we rescue an individual, Luvin Arms promises to provide them with exceptional and lifelong social, emotional, cognitive, and medical care. Since Lucky has come to us, we have worked tirelessly with our veterinarians to rehabilitate his gut so that he may enjoy good health for the entirety of his natural life at Luvin Arms. When he was being raised for meat, Lucky had never ever seen another cow. He was deprived of companionship for so long that he reached out to anyone who would listen, at that time, the only individuals available to him were human. Now that he is at Love and Arms, however, Lucky has loving relationships with many individuals of his own species. Lucky so enjoys the company of his cow friends that his desperation for human affection has lessened. Lucky, and all animals for that matter, are complex individuals. They evolve based on their life experiences. Lucky is not the same individual as he was 6 months ago, just as you or I change over our lifetime. Love and Arms is a place where all beings are given the space to evolve and change, the agency to become their most authentic selves. Farmed animals are just like us. They communicate with one another just like us. They crave companionship just like us. They have complex relationships just like us. We are all the same. We are all deserving of connection. By virtue of our need for connection and by virtue of our capacity for love, all beings are united as one. Let us come together and choose love over violence. Let us choose ahimsa. For where there is ahimsa, there is love.